there's so many different areas surrounding narcissism that some people choose to focus on one particular area. So there are a lot of channels out there dedicated to this spiritual type of intervention, or I'm not really sure how to word it. There's so many different, and I've probably said this myself in several of my videos, that there's a darkness excuse me, there's a darkness to narcissists. You don't see it on the surface. It takes time to if you spend enough time around them, you'll catch glimpses of it, you know. You'll have moments where you'll be looking at them, and they'll be the person that you've known and that you've spent time talking to, and then all of a sudden, and this happened to me on one occasion, and I discuss it in my playlist somewhere. I would have to go back through and look for it. I think the video is titled "The Moment They See You Seeing Them." This was during the Hoover, after he's sitting there telling this big full lie to me, knowing that I know what really went down, what really happened. He caught this glimpse of me looking at him, and he knew that I knew that he was lying. And he knew in that moment that I was no longer like a chain. I don't know how to put it. He knew that I was kind of like on the other side, that I had joined the group of people that were like calling him out on his bullshit at that moment, you know. Didn't think anything of it. But in that moment, he started doing that. And he was looking away from me. His face got really red. And that was how I knew that he was trying to figure out a way out of that, you know, because he knew that he had been caught up in a lie, and he knew I wasn't falling for it and believing it at that moment. And so he was just like rubbing his face, and he was like trying to think, what do I say now? What do I do now? And he turned, and I know this is going to sound silly, people. I know some of you, and I talked about this on YouTube way back when it happened. He turned and looked at me, and he was a different person. Now, don't get me wrong, I didn't see a different face. You know, it wasn't like a different human being face or whatever. It was still his face, but he was different. He had taken off the mask. And I know that everybody hears that term mask, and they don't think that it's a real mask. It's not like a Halloween mask. Like, they're not dressing up like, Freddy Krueger or somebody, which some of them are that bad, but it's just a moment when they no longer try to hide who they are. They no longer try to, like, disguise their face, their appearance, their thoughts, or whatever, you know. And he looked at me, and he knew, at that very moment, he knew that I knew what he was. And from that day forward, he never tried to play me. He never tried to wear a mask around me. He was just his real self. And that was when he changed, and he started talking to me. He didn't even try to, like, coax me with lies. He would just flat out say, this is what I want from you. This is the way I look at you. This is how I see you. And it got to be to the point that I had pretty much just told him, you know, I'm not coming back around you and stuff. And he would text me. He would go a couple of weeks, sometimes a couple of months. Then out of the blue, he would text me, or he would Facebook message me. And he was kind of like trying to make me into a flying monkey. He was just like, I went out and I did this and I did that with this woman and that woman, and he was either trying to, like, stick a knife in me even more, trying to make me jealous or whatever. I'm sorry about my voice this morning, y'all. I'm like congested or something. But he just didn't care anymore to like try to cover up who he was. And his treatment of me became more and more, I don't know how to word this. He treated me like I was a buddy or something, and he'd just tell me all his dirty little secrets, and then he would turn around and try to sleep with me. You know what I mean? So he was just like, whatever he could get out of me, he didn't care. He didn't care because he wasn't trying to say. But then later on he did. Later on he did try to like say, you know, maybe we could work things out. Maybe we could try again. And I was just like, no. You know, but that's not what I wanted to talk about. That's just me getting on a different subject, getting rambling, trying to explain what I'm getting at. But on YouTube, if you can go and Google or YouTube this, Google or YouTube, either one, evil, demon spirits, sounds blind to me, I can't see where I'm going. Anything like that, anything to do with like dark spirits, evil, the Jezebel spirit, that's one you can look up. There's so many subjects out there on YouTube and on the internet about this, about how so many people see narcissists as these demonic, evil kind of like, and I'm not saying that they are actual demons that came out of hell or whatever. Maybe they are. I don't know, because I don't know what happens on the other side of the realm, you know. But they have a darkness to them. They have this spirit inside of them that's just black. They don't see the goodness in people. They don't see, if they do see goodness in people, they try to spoil it. They try to destroy it, because they don't want people to be happy. They want the people around them to be miserable. And they will work on creating that misery, you know. But first they grab you and they love bomb you and they pull you in and they make you think that they're just the best thing ever was. It's no different than a pedophile that does this to a child. They meet the child in some manner, maybe through, you know, church, or they might be friends with that person's parents, or they may be a neighbor, whatever it might be, an uncle, whatever. And they groom the child. They don't just go in, grab a child and rape them. They groom them. They bring them into the fold, and they, you know, they recruit other kids. They incruit. Is that a word? Incruit? They recruit other kids. Like they'll take them on outings of a group, like Boy Scouts or something like that. And they'll have 5 or 6 kids around, and no parent thinks there's anything crazy going on, because all the other kids are there, so, you know, there's nothing going on. You don't have to worry about that guy. He's just a really good guy, you know. And the whole time he's, you know, getting the kids to trust him, sharing secrets with them. Don't tell your parents now, because they'll get mad. They won't let you come back. And the kids are having fun, you know, going on these outings and things, so they don't want to spoil it for themselves or anybody else. And that's how they groom them, and they get them, and then they pick about 1 or 2 that they really want, and that's how they do that to kids, you know. But whatever you believe, whether you believe narcissists are demons or whatever, I want to talk about divine intervention. For the people who are religious, or even if you're not religious, people believe in things such as karma. People believe in divine intervention. and people believe in spiritual intervention. They believe sometimes that something happens to upset the balance or to upset what's going on in your life, to steer you in a different direction. I've got to have a drink of water because I'm all scratchy this morning. Let me get me a drink real quick. Now, like I said, if you've not watched the video that I post to YouTube, then you're going to be kind of spoiling, or it's a spoiler. But some of you may have watched it, and by now you know that the ex-narcissist, the man that I've talked about, passed away recently. I found it out by accident. I said I wasn't going to continue to talk about him, but I had this on my mind, and I really wanted to share these thoughts. That has more to do with the woman he was engaged to than it has to do with him. But he passed away pretty quickly. I didn't hear any details yet. I figure eventually somebody will ask me, did you hear about it? And they'll give me some details. I do know that just by word of mouth from what I heard from a family member is that he had a heart attack and he passed away. I don't think there had been any long-term illness or anything like that. I don't think he had been under heart surgery or anything like that. I think it was just a quick heart attack and he died. The woman he was engaged to, I don't know very much about her at all. And I know everybody's like, well, what business is it of yours? Well, it's just a human curiosity. You want to see who's replacing me, or, not. And she wasn't replacing me because I've not been in his life in quite a few years. I haven't had any conversation or spoken or even seen him. I think maybe I had passed him on the road a couple of times, but I had not had like an actual sit-down conversation with him in 3.5 years almost. Yeah, well, 2.5. It's been close to 3 years. But anyway, he had been married and divorced since then to somebody else. But the woman he was engaged to was not from our area. She lives 2 hours or so away. I'm not going to say where she lives, and I have trolled her Facebook. There's nothing really to see there, She's but herself, and because she has a lot of stuff on her Facebook about her mom. They're very close, very tight-knit, and they're very religious, according to their Facebook posts. They, and I talked about this in the video that I posted to YouTube. She had children. She had a couple of children, and they looked to be preteen to early teens, maybe 11, 12, 13, 14. So he was going to be in their life for many years if they had gotten married, which they hadn't. She dodged a bullet. And I talked about that in that playlist. I said one of my very first thoughts when I heard that he had died was that she had been spared. She had been spared a life of misery. Her kids had been spared. Her mother. Their worlds were not going to be thrown into chaos. They were going to continue living their lives as though, and the short amount of time that he had been in their lives, a few months, maybe, I don't know how long they had known each other or had been seeing each other talking. She may have been the one that he was caught texting when he was still married to the other woman, because she talked about that on her Facebook, that he would hide his phone, that she had gotten messages on his phone, and that he had told her that it was some old friend from when he was, in, like, living in another state from years earlier. And so I don't know if it was this same woman or if this was somebody who he just cruised on the internet and met through some group or Facebook page, or a third friend, like a mutual friend or something like that, the way he did me. Probably the way he did the woman he ended up marrying and divorcing. But that was my thoughts, is that she didn't have time to know him as the person that I knew. She didn't have time to know him as the person his ex-wife knew. I don't know how long they'd been together, and I don't know if they had had any incidents where he had kind of showed his, narcissism around her family. Because they all seemed to be people commenting on their pictures, pretty much was like, it's so great to see you happy. They had posted a photo of themselves about a week before he passed away. And they were smiling and everything looked peachy keen, And all I could think was she was still in that love bomb phase. Her kids had not yet gotten to know him as this. He was playing this role of this great guy who comes in, and I'm going to be this great father figure, and we're going to do all this great fun things together. And hopefully they take that memory going forward in life. Their relationship couldn't have been any more than maybe 4 months, maybe 5 at best. Because he had still been with the other woman up until probably the first of this year. And she had posted, I think it was probably in March or April, that they had signed their divorce papers. So they'd been separated for a few months, maybe this whole year. So some point between the time that he died and January, he had met this other woman somewhere in that time zone, But however long she had known him and had spent time with him, she was still under that impression that he's this great guy, this loving guy. She's going to marry him. They're going to have this great life together. Her posts and her family's posts about God and religion and just the kind of tone that you got from her page. He could have been playing that role. He could have been playing the role of this religious Christian man who was going to go, and maybe he was going to church with her, Maybe that was what happened to him, because divine intervention or something stepped in. I truly believe that. I know it sounds kind of way out there. It sounds kind of like Bizarro World. It sounds like something out of a movie or a TV show. But we don't know what goes on. We don't know what goes on in the universe. And we don't know what goes on with God or whatever higher power you believe in. We don't know. But this woman, being from a religious upbringing and a religious background with a very religious family, and even her Facebook posts were about God's timing. God will show me what's right for me, and I follow His, His direction. So that tells me that he was probably playing that role of, here I am. I'm a Christian man. I'm a good provider. I'm a loving father figure. I'm a fun person. We're going to have a great time together, and I'm going to attend church with you, and everything's going to be wonderful. And she probably thought that he had fallen right out of heaven, you know. That was what his ex-wife had posted on her Facebook when she first got together with him, was that God had sent her the right man at the right time. And I think God did step in. I really do. For anybody who thinks that sounds silly or whatever, I'm sorry, but somebody stepped in on this woman's behalf, and on behalf of her kids, and on behalf of her peace of mind, and on behalf of her connection to her family, and that God is in Christianity is the center and the core of their lives. And I think that some higher power saw him sneaking in, this dark demon. I don't even like to use that word, but this dark spirit, this dark intentions. Somebody saw his true face, his true intentions, and they intervened on her behalf and on the behalf of her kids. Because she probably is a very dedicated mother and a very religious, dedicated Christian woman who is not out here just hopping from man to man and just, you know, her life is about her family and bringing them up in the way that she sees, you know. And he would have disrupted it all. He would have been a good guy at first, for the first year or so. They would have had wonderful times together. They would have gone on trips. They would have gone to church. They would have had family dinners. He would have been kind of an authority figure with the kids, and he would have gone to their ball games, and he would have been, and they would have all just been like, everything is falling into place. Our mother's happy. She's got a wonderful man. You know, and then all of a sudden, he would start his destruction. He would start this divide between her and her kids. He would start separating the kids. He would have everybody kind of questioning each other and kind of mad at each other. And there would have been questions about, he would have just driven a wedge, and he would have tried to divide her from her family. He would have had her, you know, and I think it would have been a lot harder for him in this case, because they are so close-knit, and religion is at the core of that, you know. So I think it would have been a little bit harder for him. It would have been more of a challenge. Maybe that's why he had a heart attack, because he was overworked from the stress of trying to figure out how he was going to do this, you know. But I really do believe that something put itself between her and him. And maybe something, someone, some spirit of some sort in the universe or in the heavens, or maybe inside of him. I don't know what happened, but I believe that they intervened on this woman's behalf to save her and her children and her family from having to go through all that, you know. Having to go through what I went through, having to go through what his exes, all of them went through, his own family, his own kids. They didn't want these children, who were probably being brought up strictly, you know, well, I don't know how to put it, dedicated to being good kids and having a mother who was, you know, making sure that they stayed on the right path. And he would have ripped it all apart. He did with the other woman. He treated his stepchild like dirt. Wouldn't even let him, like, you have a kid that's, let's say, 25, 26. they're struggling to make ends meet. They're out here working some low-paying job, and they want to come back home because they don't, rent's so high and stuff. And you say to them, well, you can come back home, but you got to pay me rent. They're already struggling, A parent's role is to kind of take the burden off of them and to help them, and not to coddle them and not to give them everything and hand everything to them on a platter, but to make it a little easier to ease up their pain and stress so that they do have it a little easier. And if you own a home, and I'm not saying let your grown kids move back in and never pay a dime or never help, but when they're struggling already and you say, yeah, you can stay here, but you got to pay, that kind of just like drives the knife even deeper, And that's the way he would be towards his ex's child. Well, the one he ended up marrying after me and him quit speaking to each other, she had two kids. One was a teenager and one was getting ready to go out into the college world, and he drove wedges between all of them. And from what I understood about it, the woman and the oldest child had completely stopped speaking to each other. They'd had a big falling out, and, it was all because he drove wedges. That's what narcissists do. They isolate you away from your support system. And that's what he would have done to this new woman. And I truly believe that something stepped in that morning that he died and said, you're not doing this to this woman. Her life and her children's lives and her family's lives and her future, their future together as a family is going to be spared. Because he picked the wrong woman this time, He picked a woman with a strong Christian, I don't know what the word is, a devoutness, and probably prayed a lot. I mean, we all did when we were going through all that with the narcissist. We all prayed. We prayed to God to intervene and to help us and to show us the right way. But she probably prayed for guidance in what was, her life. And whatever spirit out there, whatever divine interventor or intervener, whatever divine intervention took place, I believe it was some type of guardian angel spirit protecting her and her family. And probably saw his true intentions and knew that he was getting ready to start it, getting ready to start some little divide between her and her kids and her mom, and put a stop to it. And I know that sounds like, how can that be? But we don't know. We don't know what goes on out there, There's been times for all of us when things have happened that we just didn't notice it at the time. Maybe you were driving down the highway and you stopped at a store to pick up, a coffee or something, and a minute later you find out there had been a big major accident on the highway. Well, that could have been, you could have been involved in that. Maybe your friends invited you to go someplace and you couldn't go. You had to work or whatever. And something happened, there's little things. We don't really pick up on them. We don't know. We don't realize at the time that might have been intentional. It might have been the universe. It might have been God. It might have been some other spirit or power or angel, guardian angel, or whatever looking over us, or it might have just been our own intuition, our own voice, our little voices that we have that say, don't go there, don't do that, don't speak to that person. You know, we all have that little sixth sense when you're in a parking lot or something and you see some weird looking person and you're like, I'm going to hurry up and get in my car, because that's a you know, a kind of a sense of self-protection, and that we don't know. But I'm going to end this video now, but I just wanted to say that I fully have felt that since I first heard about all this. That was my very first thought when I started, when I finally, that initial shock wore off, like, he died? He really passed away? And I just kind of sitting there like a deer in headlights for a few minutes. And then I started thinking, this was the best thing that could have happened to this woman. And I'm not saying that I'm glad he died. At first I was shocked by it, and I was like, I started thinking about all the happier times that we had together and all the good times we had when all that was going on for me in the beginning, when it was the love bomb and all that. But reality set in, and I realized that it was fake memories, or it wasn't fake or false memories, because it really did happen, and I really was happy for a while. But I didn't let that override the truth. After a week or so, the truth kind of started to come back. And I haven't really felt any kind of grief or anything. I've just kind of felt like, well, he was here on this earth, and the whole time he was here on this earth, probably not the whole time, but most of the time that he was here on this earth, he was a darkness to people. He created havoc and chaos in people's lives. He uprooted people's roots. You know, your roots, your family, the people you are close to, your friends, your belief system. He uprooted that in a lot of people's lives. And maybe this one woman was what was meant to be for him, you know. Maybe it was meant for her to find him to take him out. You know, I don't know. But something stepped in for her. I truly do believe that. And I'm losing my voice completely now. Y'all can give your feedback on that, what you think about it.